Hello, everyone. I'm here with Marko Djurdjević. Marko has been a huge inspiration to me over the years. He is an incredible artist, designer, writer, and founder of the now legendary Six More Vodka, his Berlin-based art and design studio. Marko is here to talk to us today about his creator-owned IP, Orcin, which is launching a Kickstarter on February 26th, which, if everything goes according to plan, is today, the day this is being released. So I encourage everyone to go check out that Kickstarter to support it. And also, they have a game demo being released on Steam on the same day. So go check that out as well. Marko, I just want to welcome you, and I want to give you a huge congratulations for you and your team for reaching this milestone. It's absolutely awesome, man.
Thanks for the lengthy introduction. That was really nice. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for bringing me on as well.
No, it's an honor to have you here. And of course, you know that your introduction could be much longer than that if it needed to be. You've done a whole ton of stuff over the years. And
we're 30 years at this point, you know? Like it's my 30th anniversary.
Oh my God, damn. I mean, I'm 35, so I hear that and I'm just like basically my whole lifetime of being a complete badass. So
well, it wasn't like really a badass. It took me 7 years to actually, be able to make a living off of it. So like only the last 23 years count. Like the first 7 years, like I just ran around in circles trying to get jobs.
Still most of my life, baby. Still most of my life. Yeah. All right. So I do want to, all right. So for most of this conversation, we're going to wind up talking about Orcin, but my audience here is vast majority artists and specifically people who love to draw. So I do kind of want to talk about your relationship with creativity because I know that's all going to be hugely relevant to my audience. And I think that you're in a special position to help them out and give them advice because I have a pretty close relationship with my audience. I do a lot of workshops and teaching. I talk to them a lot. I do a lot of live streaming. So I kind of know what they're into. And a lot of them are, even early on in their careers now, very interested in going creator-owned, doing their own thing. It almost feels like the fine art world is like overlapping now with illustration and things like that. So I'm getting a sense that less and less people are going in wanting to get tied up with companies and doing that much client work.
I mean, that would be like the first question. Why would you want to be the person that works on a property that is already established, where you are coming in at the very tail end of that property already being successful, and you will never ever have the feeling of experiencing what it is to stomp something out of the ground by yourself. I understand the need for doing something independently, and I understand why people gravitate towards it. Biggest problem that I see with the majority of people that want to do something independently is that they don't have the maturity or the discipline to just follow through with it. They want to talk about it, they want encouragement, and they want to tap on the back long before they have actually done the work, which is something that I find incredibly annoying. Like I personally cannot stand when people tell me about their ideas because most of the time I know they have like 3 sketches ready that they've done 3 years ago. And then they want to convince you that this is the next big thing. And they want the praise, they want the encouragement long before they've done the actual effort of like finishing it. And finishing it is like really one of the things that most people lack. Like all throughout my 30 years of doing this job, I've just met so many artists that are falling into the same trap, wanting to get big with their own idea and never actually getting one week of work in on their idea. And that is terrible because like they don't want to learn new things. They just want to focus on the art side. They don't want to learn to write. They don't want to learn to lay out. They don't want to know anything about product design. They don't want to learn how to pitch. And by neglecting those skills, you're just never able to really put something together that you can put in front of somebody and be taken seriously for it. Because otherwise it's just an assortment of ideas and assortment of pictures. As good as they may be, that's not a story. That's not what people get attracted to,
These days you're lucky if there's any pictures. Some people really do just want to talk pure idea and they're like, I'll start drawing at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
but this is my impression of what I've seen with young artists specifically. And I mean, like I have a big heart for independence. My first great art hero was Todd McFarlane.
Mm,
When he left Marvel, I was a 13-year-old buying comics out of a comic book dealer's car that, who was
yeah.
selling comic books. And he told me the story of what Todd McFarlane did, and I was flabbergasted as a 13-year-old. I
This
was
would have
like,
been when he
what?
started Image, right?
He
Yeah.
walked away from Spider-Man. Like he's doing his thing. Like, is he crazy? That is amazing. And then, like I bought my Spawn #1 just because I was infatuated by the idea that you could be so brave that at the peak of your career you can just walk away from something
Yeah.
and do something.
Pretty incredible, pretty inspirational. And that does right away sort of bring me to your early history here. So when you were a kid, and well, I take it you were probably drawing from extremely young, right?
Yeah.
And were you interested in comics mainly? Was that the thing that brought you into art, or was it something else that grabbed your inspiration initially?
Well, I mean, my upbringing was really weird because, like, I've come from such a poor background. We didn't even have books at home. Like, I didn't know what books were until
Wow.
I got into school. And then once I figured out that we had a school library, I started stealing books from the library because I was so
Nice. Attaboy.
infatuated by books. So, and I remember I had like 5 books that I stole from the school library when I was like in second grade. And those were my favorite books of all time. They were like, one was about Neanderthals, one was about dinosaurs, one was about spiders, one was about reptiles and lizards, and one was I forgot. Oh, prehistoric animals. Yes. So these 5, and it was like a collection. It had illustrations in them, and those were my favorite books of all time when I was a kid. And then because I was poor, I think my first exposition to any type of art was through comics because comics were cheap.
Hmm.
You like have to spend a lot of money, and you would go to, like a small store that would have them on the rack, and you'd be able to buy it for a dollar or $2 or whatever. And that was my first exposition to art in general. And so, like, I started like really being into comics when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, around that time.
Cool.
That was the most accessible form of art for me. And then later on, like only after the age of 14, I would understand that there's more than comics. That there's
Hmm.
also illustration to serve as a centerpiece of a book or a cover and stuff like that. So like then I started opening my eyes towards new things. But like comics were my first great love.
Wow. And how did that affect how you drew early on? Like when you were first drawing, were you drawing comic book characters? Were you copying some of the comics that you loved, or were you just doing your own thing?
I was just doing my own thing until I stumbled about like at a flea market onto Borne Hogarth's Dynamic Anatomy book. That
Mm,
was like around
yeah.
12 years. And that was the first thing I had that was like a study piece that I could like really sink my teeth into and understand anatomy and proportion. And I used that thing for about a year excessively to just do all my studies, and kind of kept developing from there. And I've always had a soft spot for Hogarth's anatomy teachings. Like I know he's not very well liked in the art community because he doesn't draw pretty pictures like Bridgman.
Yeah.
But I really love his analytical stuff. It's like almost like top-down engineering, and
Yeah.
he teaches you to understand volume and space, and that was always what I found so incredibly inspiring about his work, and that gave me like the foundation blocks to like put my own shit on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, well, this is weird. This is kind of a snake eating its own tail thing, but I like that book and I know it well because many years ago I heard you say that this book was a big influence on you. So I was already a big fan of you. So I was like, well, if Marko likes this book, and you know what's funny? I had the book in my library at home, if I remember correctly. Like we already had the book. Someone must have bought it for me years before. I don't even remember getting it or something like that. So when I heard you say it, I was like, wait, really? That book? So I went and pulled it off the shelf and I started looking at it more closely. So yeah, Hogarth is definitely, he's extremely mannered, like extremely mannerist, like highly stylized, but it works very well for teaching that particular material, I think. When I went to school later, my anatomy teacher, I went to college at Art Center College of Design, and my anatomy teacher there was Ray Bustos. And Bern Hogarth was his teacher, was the guy who taught him anatomy. So I told Ray when I first met him, and he told me that, I was like, no way, I love that book. I've read a bunch of his books. And he told me all these crazy stories about Hogarth. Like, he was a very intense, kind of aggressive guy. Ray was like, oh yeah, if you didn't do a drawing well, he would throw a chair across the room and be like, you don't even care about drawing. He's like super intense guy, apparently. So I got a bunch of crazy funny stories about Bern Hogarth.
Well, maybe that's why like I was instinctively drawn to him, maybe like similar personality types, you never know.
Intensity draws intensity for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it must have been very unconsciously loaded into those books for it to be picked up. Yeah. But I think that's a great book. On the concept of that, did you ever go through a period in your youth there where you were just sort of crunching skills, or were you always drawing characters, telling stories? Because that's kind of a theme on this channel, is trying to keep people from just doing raw skill building in the abstract. So I'd be curious as to how you did it.
I've never done studies in my life. I've never had a sketchbook. I never did studies for the sake of studying. Like it just never bothered me enough. I need a challenge, in the sense that I sit down and I work for a project or work towards a goal. Otherwise, I'm not interested in the process of doing so. Like I don't understand a lot of people just sitting around drawing still lives and kneecaps and feet and all that junk. Because like it's as cute as it is that you're filling pages upon pages with all your studies, like it's also useless. It's just like you like it's not applicable. And for me, the idea of like wasting my time on something that I cannot put into anything else that is functional feels like a big waste of time. It would be like like taking a 4-pound dumbbell and like making 1 million curls with it. Like it's not going to do anything for your body. There's no progression in there. And so studies feel a lot like exercise, like when people just randomly exercise thinking they're doing something good for themselves instead of training. Because training always gets you to a certain point, progressively overloading and stimulating you towards reaching a certain threshold, while exercise randomly fucking jumping around and walking around the block and feeling like you did something today, So that's my view on it.
That's a good analogy, because I often find people trying to analogize art to sports or weightlifting or something like that. And my go-to is always like, they're not the same. They are different. But that sort of divides it up a little more cleanly there. It's like maybe they are similar, but there's a difference between just randomly doing exercise and actually doing training, keeping it under control.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's 3 major partitions here. You have the exercise, which is always clueless, which makes you do things, but without real purpose behind it, just like adding to your system without your system being able to understand why you're adding it. Then you have practice, where you just repeat the same thing over and over and over again until you become really good at that one micro movement.
Right.
And then you have training, which is like progressively overloading your body and your mind to reach a certain goal. And that is very stressful. That is very intense. But, like you can gradually see the progression. And if you have a good training plan, then you're also able to reach your goals within the time frame that you're setting for yourself. So it's a more structured approach.
Absolutely. So because a lot of artists these days, they do look at the kneecap studies and they think this must be applicable. Right? They think that it will transfer 100%. And sometimes it can be disenchanting for them to explain to them, like, not really, right? You want to believe that the straight up kneecap studies are going to transfer 100% to the crazy comic book that you want to do. But the problem is that without actually attempting and doing the real projects, you don't have the knowledge to vet how directly applicable that kneecap is, that head study is, that color study is. You may think you're doing color studies that are perfectly going to translate to the illustrations that you want to do. And the truth is that if you've never done your illustrations, you have no idea what kind of colors you want to use. You might want to use a more muted palette. You might want to use a more primary palette. You actually need to find out what you need first, what you're interested in making. And then if you have a solid grip on that, then you have some chance in hell of creating a study regimen that could actually improve that. But it starts with the actual art, with the real stuff that you want to make.
Full agreement. And you cannot learn on something that is diametrically different from what you're trying to achieve. If you do 300 crunches right now, it's not going to help you on your bench press.
Right.
If you run a marathon, you're not going to deadlift. It's that simple.
Yep.
If the studies are not applicable to anything that you're trying to do within your training, then they're a waste of time.
Yeah. So there's another divide here, which is the divide between process-focused artists and product-focused artists. What do you think you are? Do you think that you enjoy the process of making something more, or are you more driven by getting that final thing in your hand and putting it out there?
I mean, I do think that I have the tendency not to put anything in front of the audience anyway. Like, I've been removing myself from any type of audience for 5 years. I haven't posted on social media. I deleted Instagram. I was pretty much gone. I only reappeared like a couple of weeks ago on Instagram. I need to promote this shit. And it's going to do it for me,
Yeah.
But like, I'm really not searching for spotlight. If I could have it my way, I would never release anything. I would just keep on working until I hit like some point of, imaginary perfection somewhere, like right before my deathbed.
Right.
But that is my approach. But I also know that this is a completely broken way of working. Like if we're doing something, kind of need to turn that thing into money because we're spending money on it, and we need to feed people that are contributing to it, and otherwise this whole operation breaks. And so I need to have a deadline in front of me that like helps me get the stuff out of the way and finish it. But during the process of working on it, I will do everything in my capacity just to keep on overloading it with more stuff. This is how I look at it. Like, I'm just never satisfied with what I put out, and I just always want to make it better.
Yeah, and that must imply a deep enjoyment of that actual process of adding the things, getting excited about them, and actually making them, the actual doing of them. Which is not a given, because I've met a lot of artists who actually fucking hate drawing, right? And it's one thing.
I don't understand these people. Like, they're so miserable. Like,
do something else.
Exactly.
Why?
Like, they act as if the process of working is torture, and you're wondering like how can it be torture? Like, this is a choice. This is your choice. You want to do this. You dreamed it up. You got good at it, and now you're miserable about like being good at it. Like, I don't understand. Did you dream up something else? Like, did you think working in entertainment would be entertaining? Like, what's the like? I don't understand where the mental disconnect is, But this is where I'm also flabbergasted, because I love the process of drawing. Like, it's never boring for me, and I am still surprised how much mileage I can get out of it if I do it in continuity for a very long period of time without breaks and interruptions and stuff.
Right.
And so for me, that part has always been fascinating. And I've never experienced what people call a burnout. Like, I've never seen myself running out of ideas or having the feeling of like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. This is boring. No, actually, every time I sit down, I just feel like I haven't done enough. Like, I could do so much more. And then I'm looking at, my calendar, and I'm like, okay, I only got like 600 weeks of an active career left. So like, I better get started. And so like, this is where I'm coming from. I've never been juiced out with this stuff.
A lot of people will hear that and it will sound completely alien to them. They'll be like, how is that possible? How could it be that you've never had burnout? But my gut reaction and from my personal experience is that if you are doing something that you enjoy, and you've also prevented bullshit from overloading it, if you haven't put a lot of weird expectations from like other people, or especially changed the way that you draw based on methods that you heard from other people, or you think you have to, oh, there's the Loomis method, I have to do the Loomis method or something like that. And so you're moving away from the natural way that you draw. If you can stick with the natural way that you draw, there is something very deep in most people that brought them there and that got them interested in it. And it will feed you. It will keep you going. It's a deep part of your personality that will energize you, I really believe.
I'm in complete agreement with you when it comes to that. Like there's a prospect of overthinking the act of doing art that is such a bad influence for your outcome. Yeah. And I just don't overthink. Like I cut out all negative influences from my daily routine. I don't look at other people's advice or art or anything else when I draw. Like for me, drawing is just me drawing. Like that's all I want. I don't need the additional inspiration. I don't need the additional input, because all of that is just another obstacle. It's like, just imagine, let's go back to the sports example. You're just trying to, like, I don't know, do your weightlifting championship, and the first thing you do right before you go on stage is look what your competitor is doing on the phone. And like, it is like ridiculous. It like completely sets your mind into the most negative direction possible. Instead of like focusing on yourself and doing that lift proper, you're just gonna get confused if you're doing all the steps right, if there's something that might be an error that might lead to, like a cascading chain reaction and so forth. And this is just stupid. It's stupid overthinking.
Yeah. Well, I hope the audience can take some confirmation on all these points from you there, because I talk about this a lot on my channel. And, sometimes like on streams, people will be like, I want to believe you, but I can't quite bring myself to believe you. And I want to shake them. I'm like, what do you mean you don't? Like, of course, drawing is about doing it your way and enjoying yourself. Like, what lies are out there in the world that are turning people so backwards? But I'm always glad to have somebody else express it to people, so that maybe there's some chance that they'll believe it.
They want to be sponges, but they're listening to the wrong crowd. Instead of listening to themselves, they're listening to everybody else. Mm-hmm. This is the problem. Like it comes from a lack of confidence. Like maybe they've been running against the wall for too long, or maybe they've never tried hard enough. And it's something that they need to figure out for themselves, based on the choices that they're making on a daily. But like once you have a fucking routine, there's no reason to doubt yourself. Once you know the process, there's no reason to double check on every step of the game. You just like become, almost automatic. That's why it's called a routine. Like that. There's no reason to check your phone every 5 minutes, or look under the desk for answers, or wait for Yoda to come in and tell you what to do. It's just it's a stupid waste of time.
If only it was that easy. Truly, if only if it was that easy. All right, so I think we got a good idea of your foundation there, sort of where you are like on the process product spectrum, your enjoyment of drawing. Amazingly, it's not to be taken for granted. There are people out there who don't enjoy drawing, and they just see it as a means to an end, and they only go for the product. And I think that in really the people who are more process focused and the people who are more product focused, I think that you kind of naturally are on one end of the spectrum when you start, and you need to synergize the other end of the spectrum. Kind of like you said, you're very process focused, you're in your happy place, doing the work, adding more work to it, you love the work, and then you've kind of got to enter a phase where you're like, I need to make the thing and put it in front of people and like release it instead of just perfecting it forever.
This is a nice, it's a funny binary. I never thought about that, but I've always tried to classify it between creator and consumer, because I for my part consume very little and create a lot. The amount of stuff that I create, I do the opposite on the consumption side. Like I can go without any type of entertainment or input or luxury or leisure for years at a time.
Whoa.
without even noticing that something's off with me. I go to work in the same clothes for 3 years, just because I can't think of of myself needing more, I'm so oblivious to it. And then I'm also oblivious to all those social interactions that, like come with consumership, like sitting in front of a TV show and enjoying your weekend and all that stuff. It just doesn't bother me at all. Like it doesn't bother me what I eat. It doesn't bother me what I drink. I'm such a creature of habit that everything that I do just serves the creation part. And then I overdo the creation side. And my wife thinks I'm insane because I'm never home and I'm always at work and there's always another project. And,
Well, if it was left up to our wives, I think we'd all wind up in the insane asylum in the end. They'd lock us all up. I think so.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think that sort of personality type, unfortunately, is probably getting rarer and rarer these days. I think our current culture and the internet is like, I believe people's personalities are greatly influenced by the culture. So I'm perfectly willing to accept that literally our culture is changing us and is making it more likely that more people will take the consumerist path, which, as far as I'm concerned, is borderline evil and is like, that means our culture is backwards or something like that. But, maybe we could come back to that later in a different discussion.
You're right. I do think it's attractive for people because creating and not being able to do the things that you want to do and constantly hitting a wall builds up resentment because of the rejection that you're processing the entire time. And rejection has it can have a very positive effect on people, but it can also have a very negative effect. Like the positive effect is that some people, when you reject them, they get ambitious. They learn to stir the fire inside of them and work harder. And those people are always going to make it. But most people respond to rejection with resentment. They feel like the world is against them. They feel like they didn't get what they deserve. And then they become spiteful. And in that spite, in that rejection, they build the resentment that then brings them closer to consumption. They're not capable of turning that into a positive, and they treat it as if it's trauma, and the way to deal with the trauma is just consume more and to numb yourself instead of just deciding, hey, I'm going to change this and I'm going to work harder and I'm going to go back to the drafting table. And this is not punishment. This is a lecture for life. For you to become better at what you want to become, you need to experience rejection. You need to be able to see that you can't have it your way all the time, because that you will see this as a parent, you cannot allow everything to your child as they grow up. You have to be strict. You have to reject certain demands, and they will have to work for what they feel they deserve. Otherwise, you're bringing up a spoiled brat. And so this is really my analogy here. If people in their maturity, in their 20s and 30s do not understand that rejection is part of the game and it's always a signal for you to work harder, then they're never going to make it. If that causes the resentment inside of them, and if they feel like they want to blame it on the world, that's always a problem. That's normally that the personality there is starting to stall.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And the framing of rejection being a sort of creative trauma that then a person could possibly not quite ever come back from. I hadn't thought about it that way, but now that you say it, it's like I can map that to quite a few people's situations. Yeah.
I mean, he applied how many times in Marvel Comics before they gave him a gift? 220, 230 rejection letters or something. And he still kept going. It's one of the things that people are so afraid of negative feedback. And I do think it's the best thing that can ever happen to anybody. Do you think I remember any of the million compliments that I got in my life? Not a single one. Not a single one was meaningful enough to be remembered. But the 7 times that I got negative feedback for my performance, dude, I remember the temperature of the room. That, it's burned into your brain coils for the rest of your life. And this is important because you want to understand what went wrong, so you never go through that experience again. And people have a wrong understanding of negative feedback. They think that it's just negative. It's against me. It's against you to teach you a lesson to get better.
Yes.
This is the thing. you got to understand what you can improve before you can improve.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the same way. I've got key core memories of people critiquing things that I thought I was great at. And I don't remember the sea of positive things that I've heard about those aspects. And I just remember that one crit from someone I respected, and it comes back over and over and over again. And I'm lucky that a lot of them I was like, maybe I was upset at first, just in the ego way. You're like, shit, really? But then a day after, I was like, they're 100% right. God damn it. And then you change it, and I really, it matters so much to me, because then I look at the counterfactual where I didn't change it, and I'm like, damn, I would have been making that mistake for the past 20 years. It's one of the greatest gifts somebody can give you.
It only hurts because deep down that it's true. That's the only reason.
Yep. So Marko, I want to talk a little bit about your experience doing client work. Now that we've covered sort of your early stages and your mindset, like I first became aware of you when you were working with Massive Black. And at that point you had moved to the United States, but you've worked with Massive Black, you worked with Marvel for a very long time, and then you founded your own outsourcing studio as well. Yeah. But could you talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you, and sort of how what that transition from being interested in story and doing your own thing when you were young, like what was it like to then figure out how to work for clients and to deliver for other people?
I mean, you try to deliver some type of story every time you sink your teeth into a project, like you have to start loving the project in a way, otherwise you're always going to produce crap. So you need to make up stories in your head. Otherwise, the material that you turn in is not going to work out. And same goes for covers or any type of comic work. You need to let that story in. But sometimes you're dissatisfied with the story you're given, or you see room for improvement, and that you're not in a position to actually change that because it's not your property. It's not you're not paying for the development of it, and so. You would be overstepping your authority, like trying to repitch something to a client. And right. I actually would find myself to be really snotty if I ever did that. Like if I a client and be like, oh, your stupid idea, it sucks. Let me just fix it for you. So you have to work within the limitations and the confines of what the brief is, and within those limitations and confines, find some beauty and love for the process to be able to deliver good work. It's hard sometimes, especially because you don't know what the recipient will really think or understand of everything that you're trying to put in. But it can also be very fruitful if you end up with a good art director, for example, that has a vision from the get-go, and then you find some common ground, and there is some connectability in that sense. And over the years, I've also built up a track record through all the independent work that I've done, so that when I get hired nowadays, people already approach me for more than just art, but it took many, many years to get there. Like for example, there was one gig in particular, which we did for Phoenix Labs 2.5, 3 years ago, where they came to us specifically to not just give us concept art, but to also let us do the world building and create the characters and the stories within the universe that they were trying to establish. And so it happens on very rare occasions that clients are that open to input from the outside, but it can happen. And so why is it hard, or why is it tough to stay in the client business after 28 years of doing it? Like there's barely anything that is a challenge anymore. Like I feel like on every gig I'm only using 20% of my capacity, and it just feels incredibly boring. I don't know if you saw it, I posted 20 Marvel portraits that I did in 20-minute sketches on Instagram a couple of weeks ago. And there was 20 in a day waiting for the client to give me feedback because I was just so bored.
Wow.
For me, not sitting through an 8-hour day and knowing that I'm only using 20% of my potential is almost torture. And I feel like a lot of the gigs that I'm getting feel like torturous because I could perform much higher if there was demand for me to perform much higher.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty universal experience once you start working. If you don't feel like you're getting, if you don't feel like you're really being used to your maximum potential, it makes you feel nuts. You know, the feeling of sitting on your hands as an artist especially can be extremely torturous. It is, of course, still really crazy to hear that even you can feel like you're being used at 20% of your potential, because in your outsourcing work and your client work, you're working with the biggest brands, the biggest companies on some of the biggest properties in the world. So that's probably both a testament to how adaptable talent is, like that your abilities and talent can grow and expand so much that you can feel that way, that even in those spots that would drive a lot of other people, you know, to the absolute brink, you're like, I'm at 20% right now. That says a lot about your talent. And it may also say something about the state of the industries. It may also say something about how we're stagnating. Yeah.
I mean, the industry is definitely stagnating because it's incredibly wasteful and it's not resourceful enough to understand how to get rid of the waste. And the waste is everywhere. The waste is in meetings. The waste is in undefined briefs. The waste is in too many cooks in the kitchen, spineless directors and producers who just want to, trend hop from one idea to the next. There's a lot of symptoms there, that are causing this entire bloat to happen. And it's also something that I've never really understood. I mean, on the one hand, I'm grateful because it gave us a business which we could run and like where we could service people that are disorganized with organized work. But at the same time, I know how feeble it is. If anybody over there would actually figure out how to run their shit, they wouldn't need us anymore. And so this is where my confusion always happens. I never understood the process of, being hired out as a studio and delivering that much work for a client that has an art team twice the size of mine.
Right.
It just makes no sense. They could save themselves all the headache and the money and all the communications if they would internally manage their people, right?
Right. Well, I think that naturally brings us to you trying to address all of these issues by making the turn towards your own creativity and what you're doing here with Orcin. So if we could talk a bit about that now, that would be great. I will take the opportunity again right here to just say to the audience, if in the off chance that you don't know Marko, I doubt that I'm introducing too many people in my audience to Marko, but if you don't know Marko, and certainly if you don't know Orcin, just pause the video right now and go down into the description and check out the Kickstarter page and check out the video game demo on Steam as well. If you haven't seen it, you need to see the scope of the project and the quality of the project to really contextualize everything that we're going to be talking about here. I mean, Marko and his team are world class and they've been working very, very hard on this. So don't listen to this if you just have no idea what the product is. Like, go actually check out the page, support it. But yes, let's assume they paused. And again, let's also assume that if everything goes according to plan, whenever anyone's listening to this, the Kickstarter page is fully live. It's been launched. So you should feel comfortable saying whatever you want in that context, that this would be coming out when the Kickstarter's live. But Marko, would you just tell us about Orcin sort of in broad strokes? Like, what is the project in your own words?
It's a creator-owned shared universe that has the same approach that any other transmedia universe would have, similar to New York City for Marvel Comics, where you have Spider-Man and Wolverine coexisting next to one another in their own storylines, but sometimes those storylines overlap. Or similar to Star Wars, where you have multiple character arcs happening in the same universe, and there's different types of stories to be told in front of one particular narrative background. And this is what Orcin is. It's that type of an approach. The story originates from my very early notes from 2001 when I was a graphic designer writing the Metro in Berlin to work, and I started laying out the foundations of it. And I abandoned it after 9 months of production back when I was young because I just did not feel that I have the maturity to do the story justice. And I shelved it, and I tried to reboot it a couple of times throughout the years. Tried it in 2004, 2005, 2008, I think. And I was never really satisfied with the way I was approaching it artistically. I wasn't hitting the hallmarks of what I was expecting from myself. And then in 2016, I had a breakthrough moment. I sat through a week of design and I just overhauled all my original sketches from 2001. And suddenly it made click and I had the art style down. I knew what it needed to look like. But even then, 10 years ago, I was still feeling too immature as a writer, too inexperienced to tackle something this complex, and where you have two different narrative arcs overlapping with one another, the human side and the Orcin side being like told in parallel, pretty much like you would expect from Letters from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers, where you have like one World War II story told from two different perspectives. And it just felt too complex, and then kept pushing it away from me until I suddenly hit like a wall in like late 23, where I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And then I just decided, okay, now I need to do it. And with all those 25 years of ruminating and having that story marinate in my head, I was then able to just sit down and start really breaking the sound barrier on production, because like I felt like I had primed it up enough so that I could like now finally launch into production and do it at the scale that I had always envisioned it, which was, you know, not just a novel, not just a graphic novel, not just one setting book, not just one art book, not just one game, but like all of that stuff together. And this is where it is right now. After 16 months of non-stop work on it, I'm basically finished with the launch set, with wave one of all the products that need to come out for the prelude to be told. And
there's your tendency to overload yourself, to just give yourself as much work as possible.
I don't even know, like I have like literally the next 3 years completely planned out in terms of products.
Yeah.
Like the majority of them already manuscripted. I have sketches for most of them. So it's I've been completely going bonkers and all out with this one. It's the largest and most outrageous thing I've ever done. Outrageous in the sense of like you wouldn't even be able to put this in front of anybody at this point in time and make them understand it within 5 seconds that one person can do all of this.
No.
Without breaks. So it's really something.
Yeah, no, it's totally overwhelming. I mean, so I'm going to show the audience here on camera, but I also have footage of me opening this that I can cut away to that might be more clear. But this is just the preview packages that Marko and his team sent me over a year ago now. I mean, just one of these is more than most people would be able to do. I mean, so this is the trade paperback for one of the novels. So it's just a full book and a full story. There's previews of some of the setting books that contain writing and art that is just of top tier quality. And again, this is just a preview. This isn't even the length that the previews that are going to be available with the Kickstarter is at, but this is like already so much more work than so many people are capable of. And I mean, even just from a designer's perspective, like this is a complete design portfolio on its own. And compared to the huge mouthful that you guys are taking, it just feels like a throwaway almost, you know? It's just the tiniest little slice.
It is. I mean, like you just held up the memories of the car preview, and like this is the final version. So the final version is like 330 pages.
Yeah, look how thin this one is by comparison. And even this is like, well, this is a full goddamn story here when you're reading it.
And this one, for example, like this one was a speed run. I wrote the whole thing in 19 days. So
wow.
It's literally sat down. And that was the beginning of production. I felt like I had so much pent up energy towards this project that all needed to be released at once. I just like blasted through that book without even noticing it. Like it was done before I knew that I had done it. And that was like the crazy part. You know, when you sit on something like for 25 years and you're like, oh, fucking now is the time to do it.
It just bursts out.
Absolutely. I don't know if you ever tried to hold in a shit for a couple of days, but that's pretty much how it feels. Like when you go.
As someone who frequently gets hemorrhoids, yes, I have. Yes. Yep. Look, that answer that already gives me a lot of idea of your writing process. But I do want to pick your brain about that a little bit more. But could you, just to be a little bit more detailed for the audience, could you describe what's on offer in the Kickstarter itself? Like how many books they could get a hold of, maybe some idea of like stretch goals or add-ons that they can get?
Basically, the breakdown is like this. Since I've already completed all the launch wave products, so that is 6 books plus several add-ons, plus a bunch of secret variant covers by great artists that came on board.
Nice.
Actually, and we talk about it. Gigi Cabinaggio is on it. Elisa Ivanova did one. Matteo Scalera did one. So
awesome.
I think there's already like 13 launch products in wave 1, which are already completed, which we're trying to just get funded and put into production. Once we hit a certain monetary milestone, we're going to start unlocking wave 2. Wave 2 is then all the future products that we want to do. So everything that's now in existence at pure manuscript level and sketch level that we want to get funded in addition, so the story can continue to grow.
Wonderful.
Because what I've is like basically like 3 large acts or arcs that build like the entire narrative. And so once wave 2 is then fully funded, we're opening up the slots for wave 3, which is like the most diversified part of the IP, where we're launching into many different areas which we wouldn't be able to touch otherwise. And to make all of this happen, we're also releasing the free demo, which we've done on the side, which is like your first introduction into the world. So you go play that, you get the first 30 minutes of the story delivered in interactive format. It ends on a cliffhanger, and you're basically then capable of going straight over to the Kickstarter page and just experiencing how it continues through the books.
So cool.
That's the setup.
That's so cool. Yeah. The demo is not out yet, but I will be there on day 1. I'm going to download the demo and play it. I do want to come back around sort of after we talk about the book and art part of Orcin. I do want to come back around to talk about the game making experience on its own. But all right, so to wheel back a little bit to your writing process. So does an idea like this, is this typically, you just explained how it went with Orcin, but you've done other things like Djurdjević and Hood and World War Zero, all sort of these creator-owned IPs. Does it usually come to you just in a flash, and then after that flash, is that basically its shape, or do you change it a lot? Like, do you find that things transform a lot, or is it more of like a crafting process?
Like what I've noticed over the years is that everything starts always with the same basic principle. If once you can define the conflict of your story, you have all the drama that you need to be able to set up the story, because like the conflict has a beginning and obviously has an end. And so once you figure out the cause for the conflict, you also know its effect. And then if you know its effect, you also know how to resolve it. And if you combine those 3 things, the skeleton is pretty much done. And that's the one thing that you can always go back to when you write yourself into a corner. You just have to remember, what was the very first conflict about? Right. Like, what is this? What am I doing this for? And then you're basically able to like meander back into your editorial spine. And from there, it's literally just filling the gaps, like finding those key moments and sketching them out. And this is really almost like sketching them out very generously, and then tidying them up as you progress. Like you don't start rendering a piece before you figure out the proportions of it. So the writing is very much the same. If you can figure out in the most simple manner how to break the conflict down into one sentence, and then elaborate on the 3 essentials on cause, effect, and resolution, then you're like basically. It would be the same as me asking you, can you tell your wife a joke that has an intro, a midpoint, and the delivery, and
right.
if you can do that, do writing as well. Like you just like have to analyze and break it down into like the simplest forms in the same way as you would draw. And most people find that completely outlandish when I say that, but like that's really what it feels like for me. Like I don't feel stressed out when I write. I like write the same way I sketch or draw. Always with a very loose stroke, and then slowly building up the tension and tidying up where I need to tidy up.
That's very interesting. For the actual form of that, when you say you're sort of sketching while writing, right? Do you always write in prose, or do you do outlines and things like that? Like, do you take notes at the early stage, or do you just write the prose, like with dialogue and everything?
I do write outlines because I have people on my team that need to know what I'm going to write. So I write outlines for them. But I don't write outlines. Like if it was not for the people in my group, I would not write them. Right. I literally sit down and just write. Yeah. I have no notes in my head. I have like notes on my phone that I make in the morning. But in the morning when I take a shit, normally, like I just like type a bunch of sentences, like be it dialogue lines for characters that I know will show up, just to capture that essence, and then I go back to the drafting table later and just copy stuff over on my phone. But it's very much straightforward in the same way as I sketch. Like no great plan, sit down, do it, and then finish it later.
Got it. Yeah, because I sense that a lot of people, especially in our industry, it's becoming more and more important to incorporate writing into the process, I think. I think as things are becoming grander, as people are becoming more project focused and entrepreneurial and things like that, like writing is becoming more important for the artist. And I find that a lot of artists, when they're working on the writing part of their projects, to me, I feel like they're there's a confusion between world building and writing a story. You know, like people think that they're taking a lot of Wikipedia style notes about their world. Like this is made out of this is made out of that. This is, you know.
Of course. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say conceptualized world building is not storytelling. It's just you jerking off to things that you know.
Yeah, like, I'm inclined to agree. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with building a story. If the story is boring, all your great like thinking ahead of time and you trying to be really clever about your ideas and why somebody has blue skin because of like some photosynthetic fucking material that is changing his skin to blue, like that doesn't fucking ring with readers. Yes. Like you have, as an author, you have just one job, and it is to entertain. It's like the only thing you have to do. You have to keep the reader entertained. And by entertained, meaning bringing him from A to B to Z to make his own conclusions and come to the conclusion that the book was good. This is like your job. It's not your job to show anybody that you're the most clever person in the room and that you've studied your subject matter very hard and very long. This is really boring writing. And people do, like, especially artists, completely confuse that. They think like making a bunch of random notes about like some race that they imagine will be cool. But it won't be cool if it's never relevant to the story. The story needs to remain relevant, and every bit of clutter that you add is just going to make it more cluttery. You know, like it's not going to. If the detail exists just for the sake of detail, then it's noise. It's white noise, and so you need to be able to edit that shit out and really just focus on the things that are meaningful for the story, and add those as the spice of your story and not as like the main weight of your story, because everything will be bogged down by that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just find that it can be like pulling teeth with students sometimes, like trying to tell them like those notes are not the story. The story is what happens in what sequence, what people say, presented as an audience is actually going to fucking read it. Everything that is not how an audience is going to interface with it directly is to some degree just not it. That's not the story. That's why when I first saw the preview packages for Orcin, I thought it was so awesome that parts of the story are just actual novels, just words in a book, just an actual story written in prose. It's like that's the real deal. That means someone is really telling their story and not infinitely preparing to tell a story, right? And I think that that's the distinction.
I have to say though, it took me a long time to build up that confidence that something
Sure.
that I'm doing would sell as a book only. And the only reason why it happened with Orkin was we have a really good community in terms of preview readers. We have a bunch of like I think 60 of them that have NDAs with us that get stuff very early in advance. So I pick their brains. I just want to get like early feedback. Of course, they're fans, but like they're long-time fans. They've been around for a very long time. They've analyzed the work back and forth. And so I most of the time get really substantial stuff out of them, which is important. And so with Orkin in particular, we sent them the manuscript for the novels, not because we wanted to publish the novels as novels, but because we wanted to get it out to them. So I have time to start working on the art. And it came back with flying colors. People didn't even ask for the art once. They were like, dude, like this is fucking awesome. Like, I don't care what you draw, like
Yeah.
publish these as a novel. And that was the first time it made click, like that you could read stuff without me having to draw it all. And that is why we are offering those as pure trade paperbacks, because over the last year and a half of testing, that same result has happened pretty much with everybody that got a hold of the preview material as well. And so now we have real confidence that we can actually do novels as well.
Yeah. So to again, just to get back to the nitty gritty that's on the Kickstarter, like people will be able to either get both or pick, I believe, like, do you want Memories of the Car as just the words, as just the trade paperback, or do you want this illustrated deluxe edition? Again, this one's just a preview of what that will actually be, but it's the same story, just the illustrated edition is like an illustrated novel, that shows you what's going on with the incredible artwork. Is that correct? Is that how that's going to work?
Correct. And it's funny because like some people are just they're unable to read without getting like the visual stimulus. Like they've been so moved from the concept of reading that you need to bring them back almost like children. You need to give them some eye candy and then like make them actually read the first line because they like the illustration so much. And then they understand, oh wow, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
But that's why these two formats exist. So basically, one for the collector or the people that have a hard time imagining stuff, and one for the people that actually like consuming words just by themselves.
Yeah, I find I'm a bit of a mix. I do like consuming words just by themselves. I'm an avid reader, so I found when I was reading it, I preferred to read just the words through, just no distractions. When I read, I stuff looks like a movie in my head as I read anyway, right? So it's just like, let me just do my brain movie while I read and not be distracted. And there's just something very clean about the typical trade paperback format. It's very focused. It's a natural read. You can read it on the toilet and things like that. And then once I was done, then I went through and looked at the illustrated version carefully and closely inspected the pictures. And there I wound up rereading chunks of the text to see their relationship. But I found for me, I'm kind of a hybrid. Like when it was just words, when it was the words, I'd rather do just the words. And then when it was time for pictures, I wanted to do just the pictures, give each my focus. Yeah, I don't know how many people will be like that, but I found it to be quite a pleasant experience, actually.
We don't know what the spectrum is. We just know that both formats work and both formats will have different readerships, or eventually both formats will also have collectors as readers. But like they want both formats, for example.
Yeah.
But what is the most important is that the story in itself is working, whether it's presented just with words or with words and pictures, and the person has to decide what they like better and which format they want to go for.
Absolutely. I think that leads us into do you think you could tell us a bit about the story of Orcin itself? Like, would you describe just the narrative in broad strokes?
I feel as a designer that we need more limitations in the way we tell stories. I think we've lost the art of storytelling and sacrificed it on the altar of Gonzo and making everything happen that our imagination can come up with. I've never been attracted to fantasy specifically because of that, because fantasy just feels extremely cringe and overdone. just a bunch of stereotyped races put into like some fantasy continent with dragons and magic and Deus Ex Machina hand wave explanations for everything, and it's just extremely boring and predictable. It is also always stinky ass European. It feels grimy like a medieval town in the middle of Germany. It's always gray and brown and really, really predictable. And with Orkin, I had an idea to tell the great conflict between two nations at the very beginning when it happens. When is conflict the most interesting? It's like when first contact happens, when both sides do not know each other, when they have no means to understand each other. It's a very small storytelling window with great opportunity, which is completely underused, because in fantasy media you always have the big opposing forces knowing each other for thousands of years, and you're like wondering, like, why is nobody capable to fucking resolve this shit? Implement over the fucking mountain line, like let him talk to the orcs.
Right.
Like it becomes so predictable that you're wondering, like, well, like, how are you trying to tell me that this is a real case scenario? We don't have 1,000-year-long wars in our history to like even base this off of anything. And in almost all fantasy media, it's then, like that very pivotal moment where either somebody gets turbo buffed by some demonic powers, or somebody becomes the messiah, and then like the one faction wins a little bit of material, and then the other faction has to bring in their superhero, and then the head bashing begins. And this is extremely trite, I would say, and so like what is the approach with Orkin? Bring it back to the roots, bring it back to the original conflict. Take something that is as tropey as orcs and humans, orcs versus humans, which has been done to death in fantasy media, but like take it serious. Like a war story. Tell it like a, like a world being on the brink, like paradise being on the brink of World War II, and build up that conflict through treating both parties with the same type of maturity, giving them reason to make all the wrong choices right out of the bat. And that is great storytelling, and that is great first conflict or first contact storytelling, which has not been done in fantasy at all. Like I want to read that stuff. I'm excited to know why our protagonist is just doing everything wrong, and I'm excited about why the villain is doing everything wrong, and their wrong choices leading to an escalation of events rather than an escalation of extremes. You don't need to turbocharge anyone in the story if both sides are constantly making bad steps or bad decisions that lead to an escalation of events.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first saw Orkin, which I think would have been probably in 2016. I think you said that was when you sort of took a new stab at Orkin, right? And then probably then is when you started posting art for it.
Yeah, I think in 2017 I made the first post.
So I think that would have been the first time that I saw work from Orkin, and that resonated with me immediately, right? And you hadn't posted much about like the story at that point, but just from seeing the art, I was like, I think I get what's happening here, which indeed was sort of what was happening. And I mean, I resonated with it immediately, both on the drawing side. I'm an artist, so the drawings mean a lot to me, but the story idea I thought was so cool. I also felt when I saw it, I was like, why hasn't anyone done that yet? This fantasy retelling of first contact, that we all have an intuitive either educational knowledge or gut knowledge of what kind of happened there and how it changed the world and all of that. So it's immediately relatable, right? We project things onto it, but I was like, yeah, no one has really done that. And oh my God, just on the art side, like seeing the influence of like Mesoamerica and Latin America, my parents are from Colombia. So for me, seeing that influence, I was like, no one has done this. Okay, I need to be more direct. People have done it. I was like, no one has done it cool the way that Marko did it.
This is so funny that you mentioned it. Like I was just at New York Comic Con with my art dealer, and he had a bunch of Latin American artists at our booth, and they were praising Orcin art, they said nobody has ever treated their culture with more respect than the stuff that they're seeing, because it's not derivative, it's not blatantly stealing.
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Fundamentally understand it and change its language just enough so it becomes its own thing. But it's fundamentally inspired by it. It's fundamentally inspired by it because nobody has ever used it properly. When I see people use any type of Mesoamerican culture as a baseline inspiration, they just tend to take the same patterns without understanding them. They tend to take the same, like one eagle warrior outfit that they found on Pinterest that they just repeat. They don't try to think the idea further and understand, hey, what were the material restrictions? What were the resources? What were what did the colors mean in their combination? Was there a reason for that certain type of patterning? And that was a major part of the artistic world building that I've done on the project, was just to understand, hey, what do these orcs need to look and feel like for them to be their own thing? Yet you can immediately trace them back to an origin culture, but at the same time, they're not just a blatant carbon copy of it. They're not Aztec orcs or, I don't know, Incan, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're their own thing, taking inspiration from a culture that is completely underrepresented in media in that sense. And also understanding what made that culture beautiful and being able to translate those shapes into something new. That is that is what I really loved the most about this type of art direction.
No, it landed for me immediately. I was everything that you just said. It was a brutal design education the second that I saw it. And I already thought you were a great designer, and I thought that the stuff that you were doing with Six More Vodka, I already thought everything was awesome. But when I saw Orcin, I was like, he and his team and whoever else is helping with this might be some of the best designers who ever lived. This is a real hard tightrope walk to do. You really have to be on a knife edge, and you have to just have an immaculate design sense by my estimations. Because yes, like I said, I've seen people do, so there's something like Apocalypto, for example, which I love. I love Apocalypto personally. I think it's a great movie. And as far, it's great. I mean, a favorite, but it's more on the historically accurate side. I mean, it's still a movie, right? They're pushing things, but you could tell that they were going for historical accuracy. And that's a way to handle the source material. And you're looking for primary sources. You're pulling stuff from museums. It's very apropos there to, go to a Mexican museum, find a headdress and say, we're just going to remake this headdress. And it's exactly that. And that's what this character wears. And in something like Apocalypto, where it's a period piece, that's perfect as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
In the more creative side, when people do video games and things like that, like you said, they're kind of still doing that, right? And even if they're getting a primary source, there's a sense where, it's respectful, but it doesn't quite work to just put that same thing, that real thing, on a character. You and your team had what I consider the bravery to find the real sources, know the stuff, and then still go further and transform and do it from that core understanding. And
I spent so much time around Mayan Aztec art. I don't even know what I tried to understand it. At one point, I think I started hallucinating because I saw shapes repeated in early Japanese art, and I was not able to make the connection. Mayan started looking like the proto version of what Japanese art would look later on. And literally, I would recognize certain certain shapes, certain facial features that were so close to what we see on Japanese castle walls and on tapestries of later periods, that it almost feels like there is a direct connection between those two cultures, as if it sprung out in Mesoamerica and then somehow traveled back across the ocean and influenced the Japanese way of doing it, and they just refined it and made it so much cleaner and more robust, but like the crude forms, they're all there in the early Mesoamerican stuff, which is absolutely fascinating. And for me, one of the things that I hate is like hand waving research. Like for me, it's not research to open up Pinterest and look at a bunch of pictures and then think, okay, they use turquoise a lot. Let me use turquoise. Like that's fucking not. That's not understanding the reasoning behind it. You got to understand what a culture's background was for you to be able to, within those same confines, add new resources for your idea that you have to influence and shift dramatically or less dramatically how that design would evolve in a fantastic world. So this is where I really think the intellectual part is incredibly important, but you can only be intellectual if you're respectful with the source material and you understand the source material from the get-go, rather than just like browsing over it and being like, oh yeah, I get it, like I'll just do some macaw feathers and that's gonna sell the thing. So
no, I mean, just
my take.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the right fucking take. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You know, the art looks goddamn awesome. And one last thing I'll say there is that other people trying to thread that needle, they might quote unquote pull it off, but then it doesn't wind up cool. And you guys never veered away from the cool. It still stayed just awesome. Really high appeal, really cool. It's hard to find more precise words to put it in, but you...
It's also something where I'm like, I don't understand certain design choices that modern media has made over the years. Like the first thing that I did for the orcs was to put the tusks inside the mouth to make them more appealing.
Yeah,
like that was the only real change that I made to their appearance, and it was just a change to get them away from the monstrous over to the animalistic, like make them less filthy boar, more elegant cat, and like that's the only change. And suddenly you have beautiful orcs, you know, like they're nice to look at, you know. Like
I think on your website it said like make orcs sexy again or something like that.
I just don't understand why media would not like think after 70 years of running that same trope with the fucking like protruding jawline and gigantic tusks. That shit like doesn't work on the big screen. The Warcraft movie looks like shit. Like I just don't know why you want to sell this ugly archetype to an audience when you can just like change the archetype just slightly, give it like one tiny visual overhaul, but you get a much bigger spectrum of possibilities immediately.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you've also got the benefit of that you're going in depth there, right? Because they might look at what they're doing and, you know, they're just trying to sell an immediate gut punch archetype that really doesn't actually have that much depth, you know, where you have the benefit that you're going to go deep. You have different tribes, different bloodlines. You every character has their own personality and their own background, and it's like, you know, not to be rude or anything, but it's like if a lesser project was going to transform the archetype like that, it's even if they did it, it'd probably fall flat because then they have no meat behind it. They found this different visual direction, but they're not going to actually goddamn do something with it. They're not then going to go in depth on those orcs and find those characters and find those stories. So you're set up to really succeed with that because you found a way to transmute it, but you're also actually going to go there and give the stories and provide the necessary depth to make that actually worth it. Yeah.
I mean, treat the material as maturely as I can, because this is like the one reason why I kept postponing it for so long, because I wanted to be, as a person, I wanted to be mature enough to be able to tell something like this. I did not want to tell it in a juvenile mindset with too little life experience to back up what I'm actually doing here, because like you need to be able to source. If you're writing a story like this, you need to be able to source from many, many different layers of experience, and maybe I just was not ripe enough in my 30s or in my 20s to, you know, really tackle that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel that way as a reader even. You know, when I was reading like field reports from Edom, it makes me think of Hernan Cortez's letters to Charles V, right, when he was conquering Mexico, and it's like when those letters are really fucking long, but the parts of them that I've read, right? Like the part where Cortez describes meeting Montezuma, right, in Tenochtitlan is like, no movie will ever do this. Like the horror, and I mean horror in like the classic word, like terrible, like this awe-inspiring moment of like two cultures meeting. This is a real city floating on a fucking island in the middle of a lake with only a few ingress points, and this god character comes out, and it's like in Cortez's letters, he explains that Montezuma gives him like a pectoral girdle that has 1.5 foot long golden prawn hanging from it, and it's like that really happened to someone, right? Yeah. And I think if I had read that as a kid, it might have landed like a movie, right? But reading things like that as a more mature person, it's like, damn, this is history. Like that happened. That's a scary thing. And then people died. A whole civilization died, right? Yeah. And that I don't know if maturity is a way that you could describe that. I do still even feel that when I read something like Field Reports from Edom. Like I feel like it's analogizing to something like that, and it is asking me to take it seriously to that capacity. You know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would not want this to be a joke. Like I'm not doing this just to like be create something that has like a bunch of puns and tropes in there and like keeps people entertained on a jokey level. I want people to think, of course, when they're reading the stuff, and it is sourced from a lot of inspirations. It's sourced from industrialization and socialism and the conquest of the North American continent, and all of this is material that flew into it to build the segue into the story, because of course the story is bigger when you plan the thing out in front of you. Like you have to think about like, hey, what is actually happening in Act 2 and Act 3? What's the return of the Jedi gonna be about? So like you have to like spin that story to the end, but like you need that segue into the story. And I do think that and this is why I took it. This First Contact is just such an underused tool in fantasy. And I wanted to do it right, and I felt like it was like the right bait and setup to be, guiding the reader deeper into the material and giving them the reason to start investigating what more is happening on, the other side of the war, giving them a reason and a purpose to try to understand the Orcin side.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's totally landing. And just to clarify, I think I've heard you say before, but you do have the whole story mapped out, right? Like you. Let me know if I'm wrong, but like what your ending is, like what you're trying to get to there. Yeah.
I've already drawn the ending, and I've already like put the notes down for the ending. I know exactly where I need to go, but I know that it will have only impact if I tell the in-betweens. And I'm looking at the in-betweens as the plan to get to the ending. So the ending will have the impact that I think it deserves. And so I need to do a bunch of things in between to get there. But this is what we're doing the campaign for. Hopefully people will understand it as the stuff unlocks, that there is a greater master plan behind all of this, how it's orchestrated and where it's supposed to lead.
I'll
take everyone's wallet and money and savings.
No, everyone just dump your whole savings into Orcin. But I think it's very important for people to actually know their whole story structure and what their ending is going to be. I mean, our best stories, even stuff serialized on television that takes years to tell, things like Breaking Bad and things like that, there's a through line where almost all those stories, the creators say, I knew the ending from day one. I always knew where it was going to end. Yeah. So hearing that from you makes me think that everyone's in good hands, that you're actually going to be able to focus this thing and tell a focused story.
That's the way I'm structuring my stuff. I'm very analytical when it comes to like this cause effect resolve principle, because it really helps you keep yourself build a narrative frame and spine for yourself that you can rely on, and that like helps you stay on target, because nothing is worse than meandering around and not knowing where you're going. And a reader can sense that, like when when the author had no fucking idea what he was doing, like, and you just know it as well when you watch a series that is just like feeling the same way, like where the series is trying to fool you that they know what they're doing or where they're ending up, but they're actually not. Like, and you see it by the filler.
Yeah, you can see that they had Act 1. They knew the questions they wanted to ask. And then as soon as things need to start getting answered somewhere in the midpoint, they just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and it never gets there. And then you lose faith. You're like, they have no idea what they're doing. They really don't. Marko, if I could ask you on a more practical side, what is the practical aspects of running a project like this at your studio? Do you have totally separate teams working on client work and on the IP side? Yeah.
So our client work department most of the time has nothing to do with our IP development department. We're also different team sizes. Like, it's only 4 people on the IP side, and like the 4th person just got hired. So it's basically me on writing, art, product design, layout. And then it's Miguel as my second in command on the art side, and Liam as the main editor of the line. Just making sure that we have quality control and that all the things that are related to PR and newsletters and everything gets out on time, and understanding how a Kickstarter campaign works, all that stuff. So it's the 3 of us, and now we have like a 4th apprentice, so to speak, that is helping out. What we have as an opportunity sometimes is that people from the outsourcing department are free. There's nothing going on, no client coming in, or somebody is waiting for feedback. And then we try to snatch them away and like bring them in for a few hours to help out on something that we need to resolve on the art side. It's only off and on. It's not a full-time gig. And I mean, I can't afford it because we are also investing so much money on the video game production side of things. Like this has been pretty much the most expensive project that we've ever run in terms of just pure budgeting, and I've been turning every penny over twice before deciding to bring somebody on board. I hope it's gonna ease out on us after the campaign is over, because I would really like to at least, now that everything is established, bring another graphic designer on board so I don't have to do all the graphic design myself, because it just takes a fucking lot of time. And then eventually, maybe find a few more artists, or maybe even a new author to come in and join forces. That would be great. But I don't know. Like, it's still too early to say.
No,
We're still 6 days out.
Yeah, and for now, you're wearing like every hat. You do the art, you do the graphic design, you do all the packaging design as well. And here you are, marketing it as well. You're the guy on the podcast, right? So
I'm the guy on the podcast. I'm also the guy that sits with investors and publishers. Like, I did 75 pitches this year. I mean, in the last year, with the prototype in hand. And, you sit through grueling meetings, and you're trying to convince people to spend money on you, and they are infatuated with the project, but then they come back with the same objection that they all have. Well, then prove that there's demand for the IP, and then we'll give you money. I'm like, dude, like, when I prove that there's demand for the IP, I don't need to come back. Like, just say, like, let's save ourselves the time, like, this is retarded. And so I've been through that ringer as well. It's been quite a ride, like, summing up the last 16 months in terms of like all the craziness that I had to go through. But yeah, I'm the horse that is pulling this cart at the moment.
Yeah. You're a big, powerful horse. You're a war horse. That's what I would say. Can I ask a little bit more about the pitching process? Like, how did that come about with Orcin in particular? Like, was it just from connections that you already had, or did you just start cold knocking on people's doors saying, "Hey, I've got something"?
I have an agent, a movie agent, and he's been working with me for the last 10 years, and he's a fantastic guy. He's possibly the greatest champion of my work that I've ever met. Wow. He has been such a lover of my stuff. He's so supportive when it comes to anything that I've built, and he helped me sell the Genesis TV show rights to Sony back in 2016 or 17, and The TV show rights were then with Sony for 2 years. They tried to make it a TV show, but they couldn't pick up a broadcaster. None of the broadcasters wanted to handle it because it was too expensive and too European and too bleak and blah 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 blah. And so the
Too European is an odd note. I feel like could you cover
like the Genesis plays in Europe. It's not in America. Like it's post-apocalypse in Europe, and that's what Netflix didn't like that. Like they were like, we would like it to play in America, and I was like, but like America's gone in the story. I'm not gonna fucking bring it back.
You don't understand. America's gone. It's not there. Could you just quickly? I don't want you to lose your train of thought, but how did you get hooked up with this movie agent 10 years ago? Like, how did your relationship begin?
Through my comic editor in France, who had met him before, and I was pitching the Genesis as a early tabletop RPG to my editor, and my editor was so blown away by what I was doing that he said, "You need to meet my future agent Russell. He will fall in love with it." And Russell actually then did fall in love with it, and kept on supporting me from that point forward. And then during the time we were pitching Genesis together, he asked me what else I have in store, and I pitched Orcin to him, and he instantly fell in love with that. Even more than he liked the Genesis, he felt Orcin was the right thing to do. And he was like, every year after that, he was asking me, "Are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? What's up with Orcin? Why are you not doing it?" And then I called him up, literally, when did I call him up? I think I called him up December 2024, and I was like, "I'm doing it." And then he jumped out of his chair, and then he's like, "Are you coming to LA?" I was like, "Can you set up pitches?" And he was like, "Sure." And then he started setting up the first round. Like I think he got us the first 30 pitches within a couple of weeks.
Cool.
And then we flew out to LA, and we just met with everybody over there. Then from there to GDC. Then we at GDC we tried to get pitches on the fly, via app, meet to match. And then from there, stuff started spinning out of control. Then we got other people hitting us up because they heard through the grapevine about it and then wanted to talk. And so all in all, it went from February last year all the way until August. I was only pitching. I was literally flying left and right, going to conventions and meeting people. Wow. And being on the phone, Zoom calls and all this stuff. That is the entire process behind it.
Wow, that's intense.
But I think it went good because we already had a lot to show for it. We had the books already midway through production, and we had the prototype in our hand. So we basically had we come in and it'd be capable of firing straight away. It wouldn't be a pitch where you're talking about an imaginary idea, but there's all concrete numbers here. This is how much we spent. This is where we are. This is where we want to go. This is what we're expecting. So it already had some tangible side to it. It didn't feel like some convoluted talk about the potential we would have with publisher X or Y.
It's awesome. How long is an individual pitch in this context? How long would it take you to pitch to one team? An hour?
An hour.
Nice. Yeah.
And most of the time, the pitch is not going well if it's less than an hour. if it went for half an hour, then the pitch is it's not a good pitch. Then you should not call that person back. They're probably not going to see you again.
I bet. So I think that this naturally takes me into what's going on the game side. Was the game prototype that you guys are also launching on the same day as the Kickstarter, was that a result of this pitching session, or did it come about a different way?
No, it came about completely different. When we started shipping the preview packs out in September 24, my wife and I got an invitation from the Serbian Games Association, which is a non-profit organization down in Serbia. They run events, and they begged us to come out as speakers. And we were like, "Oh my God, I don't want to go to an event." And she didn't want to go to an event. And then she had an idea, let's go to the event, but instead of asking them for payment, we're going to ask them to, introduce us to a bunch of the video game studios down there, because then we can around and see if there's developers that might be useful for us in the future or to make new contacts. And I agreed to it, and then we asked the organization to do that for us, and they actually did it. They gave us a 3-day tour across 16 studios in Belgrade, and in Novi Sad, which is a city further north, and they established all the introductions over there, and we were scouting, pitching Orcin all the time. And we ran into a small indie developer. This was the last meeting called Demagogue Studio, and they had like already 3 games shipped. And they showed us the prototype for the 4th game that they were working on. And it like instantly made click. Like I understood their art director from the get-go. I understood what he wanted to achieve through his level of stylization. He understood me, where I was coming from in terms of storytelling, and choosing this particular art style because it's applicable for animation and video games.
Yeah.
And as we started chatting, we like just fell in love with that team. And then a week later, they flew out to Berlin to pitch us a game concept based off of having read the books. And we loved their idea, and we were like, okay, like, what's it cost? They gave us the numbers, and then we said yes. And then we were in cahoots. Like literally a week later, we started pre-production.
Wow.
And the whole build took us like, I think, 6 to 8 months to produce in total, with 10. And you'll see it on Thursday. You should play it. It's pretty good. I like it.
I'm going to play it. I'm definitely going to play it. And I encourage everybody listening to play it.
I think it's amazing for how little money we had and how little time we had to build all of this. But it's like you can sense the passion coming through it. And it's a real adaptation of the illustrations into the 3D space, which is what I love the most. It feels like Orcin. Like the IP is so well translated visually that you're like, oh, look, it's Marko's drawings moving.
That's something I wanted to talk about, because I remember when I first saw the Orcin art that you posted back in 2016, whatever it was. I remember my first reaction was, oh, these are sketches that the studio is then going to develop more in the way that I'm used to seeing, right? Something highly rendered, like, I don't know, Hood or something like that, where it was highly polished. And I was fine with that. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, but it's really cool to see them posting rougher stuff that shows more process or just raw energy. And like I said, I already immediately resonated with the work, right? So that was my first reaction. And then when more information about Orcin came out years later, and I found out that was just the actual art direction, that was the look, I thought that was the coolest fucking thing ever. I was like, I really did, because I remember when I first saw it and I had that assumption, oh, they're going to refine it later. I was like, wouldn't that be kind of a shame? Because this already looks badass. Like, but then I get in my artist head, I'm like, but I just love it because I'm an artist. You know, maybe people need to see it more refined. When I found out that you guys just went in on that and you said that is what it actually looks like, I was like, that is so cool. It's already working so well.
I've tested it now so many times on people who have no art background, and people with no art background react to it so much stronger than to all the over-rendered stuff, because the over-rendered stuff takes away from their ability to appreciate the story. Like you don't need that hyper realism anymore. I think that's been overdone. It's absolutely like, I can't tell the hyper realistic stuff apart from one another anymore. When I see portfolios with they're like trying to capture that essence, I'm also artistically not interested. I find that reduction to be the best possible way to bring in a much broader audience, because you're not overburdening everybody with like that additional layer of detailing and rendering that is absolutely ineffective in a way, you know, like because you're like, the amount of time that you spend on one illustration, like on a good day, honestly, Stephen, like I do 3 to 4 illustrations, you know, so like I wouldn't be able to do that if I was rendering every piece.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Like I would be sitting there wasting 3 to 5 days on rendering an illustration, and then what? Then it's just like one illustration done versus I could have 25 done in that week.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it was such a smart call, and it just lets you get really high volume. And again, like you were saying, the translatability, right? Because I remember when I started seeing, I think the first thing I saw was like the character concepts that you posted. And then later I started seeing some of the more narrative like illustrations. And I remember when I saw the narrative illustrations, I was like, these look like frames from like the coolest anime ever, which is, my audience knows I'm not a big fan of anime. So for me to say, you know, it's like a cool anime is high words coming from me. But I was like, it just looks like frame grabs, like it's ready to go. And, you know, obviously to some extent it couldn't be, because there's this real sizzling liveliness to the line work that would be, you know, very difficult to like translate directly. But it just, I was like, it works as its own look, as its own final art direction. And then when I saw the game preview, I was like, this is the proof of concept that it really can translate very directly. And God, you got, everything went your way, because that also meant that you could make a more reasonable prototype that didn't have to look like some highly textured Unreal Engine 5 thing that wasn't a compromise. It was clear that it was actually just trying to hit the actual art direction of the intention of the project. And that's a great synergy, man.
That's exactly how it went, because it took Stepko, the art director over at Demagogue, only to fall in love with what I was giving him, for him to sit down and work on that shader until the shader stood and was actually capable of capturing the line work that I was applying and the character designs in the best possible manner within Unity when they started building it all together. Took him a long time to like get there, but like the proof of concept is there. Now we have to like push the like our next steps in whatever we're gonna do with the video game proper is gonna be to explore how we can like improve upon that. Like now we're at the beginning stages. Now we have to bring like the next layer of fidelity to it, like to make it like even better.
Yeah, absolutely. On the production of the game, were you still in complete creative control? What were you like? Were there things you were vetoing and nixing, like, or was it more of a?
We set the work up pretty much from the get-go. Like we said, art direction, story, narrative, anything that is related to canon needs to be in our hands. We need to be able to control it at any point in time. We're not necessarily a game design and engineering studio, so like how you guys implement all that stuff is more up to you.
Yeah.
We liked the initial pitch so much because Nicola, the game designer, understood the world so strongly that he instantly saw all the narrative aspects translating well into an action RPG or like AA style Mass Effect type role playing game with the storyline, and also understanding that this is a very grounded IP. So you don't have fireballs and you don't have dragons. You need to have a certain amount of difficulty to the combat, and he opted for going Souls-like to just make the combat a real grinder. You know, like you want to feel what it feels like to like try to bash in this human's armor with the granite hammer. You know, like it shouldn't feel easy. You know, like
that makes sense.
It should be. And so this merger of thoughts was like pretty much what we loved about their pitch, and that's how we've been working together ever since. Like it's been purely collaborative, trying to get to the best possible result together.
Awesome. And what is well, you just said that for next steps, you definitely want to improve it and everything, but is there an actual structured plan right now for a complete game? Like so for example, I haven't seen the Kickstarter, right? But is a finished complete game one of the stretch goals or something like that?
Well, the only reason why I don't want to do this to an audience is because I don't feel it's honest. You know, you cannot predict what will happen 3 years down the road. To raise that much cash from a player audience just to make a potential game that might, you know, break halfway through, or where key members of the team die or move forward or something else happens. It's just a very dishonest pitch. And the way we're pitching this to our audience is, look, we have the books ready. Let's make the books profitable. The profits can then go into production of the video game. Like we need to build a sustainable ecosystem internally with the things that we have already done. We give you serialized fiction, you can enjoy it. We give you fucking art products and stories and novels that you can enjoy. Just buy them in spades. They will create the profit margin for what we need to then put back into the video game. That keeps us independent, that, like, doesn't turn us into a live service. Nobody's going to force us to do like things that we don't want to do to the game, but we can keep on creating independently at our own pace while using the books as a substitute to, like, put that money where it belongs in the next step. And then that also allows us to start like playing around with things that we could not afford in the first round, which is animation, which we want to go into anyway. And so I had to be a much more honest approach towards the audience. Hey, look, like, we're not asking you to invest into some fantasies that we're having right now. The fantasy is that we'll get there, and we will get there somehow, but like, you better put your money into something concrete, which is already finished, and then, that will help us to fund the rest.
Well, I mean, I appreciate it, and I think that, it's a very human way to do this kind of business. I mean, what you're doing here, Marko, it feels like it's, it's very current, at least to me. It feels like it's riding on the wave of, people are talking a lot about an indie renaissance happening. There's phrases like triple I being thrown around as opposed to AAA. It feels like, someone in your situation, you might be one of these people poised to lead the way on something like a triple I. You've worked on tons of AAA video games through your company. You have a lot of experience. You're a veteran. And what people want when they have these discussions, what they're saying they want is people's personal projects done with passion. That is what people want. We just saw games like Expedition 33 win Game of the Year, and that seems to have been a real passion project from a more independent team. And, I personally hope that if this is out there in the zeitgeist, that it's true, that people really do want this and that they're going to put their money behind it, and that's the world that they want to live in. That's the world I want to live in. That's why I'm having you on. That's why I support this project, especially in this, goddamn benighted age of AI. I hope that people, before everything becomes apocalyptically boring, the people will just get their heads on straight and say, you know what, we don't have to run this experiment to its conclusion before we do the good thing we know we would like. Like, I wish we could just deny it up front and just support human projects,
My stance on this is it will level itself out in less than a year and a half. I think people are already bored. Like, I honestly feel it's like the democratization of art is not helping anybody. It's literally like, and I feel, and I've used this example several times before, I feel like I'm some master blacksmith in Japan, and I have to fight off the Portuguese that are coming in trying to sell their guns, and like they're trying to tell me, hey, why don't you sell our guns, because our guns are so cool, and everybody is a fucking Portuguese fucking gun trader all of a sudden, and nobody wants to buy a katana. And then like 400 years later, Quentin Tarantino comes around and makes katanas cool again, and then everybody wants to have a katana, and then it's really cool to be a fucking blacksmith that can make a katana. Like, things just, like, the more skill it takes to make something, and the rarer that skill becomes, the more valuable it becomes. This is always the consequence. If you've noticed the emergence of woodworking channels on YouTube skyrocketing over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't know how many more I will be able to be suggested by the YouTube algorithm. It is fascinating that people are so obsessed with woodworking that there's even more people coming out with new woodworking workshop videos. But people always want to see how stuff is made. They don't want to buy the furniture. They don't care about the furniture. They want to see how the furniture is made, how somebody with their hands and with a lathe can turn the wood until it looks nice and make a bowl of it. It's interesting to people. People are not interested in automated processes. That's why nobody is waiting to go to a factory in China to see how a watch is assembled. But they will pay money to see a master craftsman assembling $1 million watch in Dubai. So
Right.
there's the rarer the skill and the more it takes for the human to make things with their hand, the stronger the demand for that skill will be. And I do think AI is just, it doesn't require skill. That's why it's not attractive. It's not attractive. Like nobody gets fooled by it long term.
Yeah.
Like you look at it uh, with the natural sense of distaste because it's so over perfected. It's so hyper real. It's already such slop. It's just such nostalgic, um, you know, like diarrhea that it's absolutely undigestible anymore. And that's what people are then starting to stay away from. And you cannot create without intent. It's impossible. The people that are creating AI stuff, they're creating it without intent. They never wanted to be artists to begin with.
Mm.
They were just jealous they're not. But they don't have the willpower to be. So where's the intention coming from? Like if there's no intention, there's no art. There's
Yeah.
no real struggle.
Yeah.
All good stuff comes from limitation. It comes from budget restrictions. It comes from not being able to do it your way. That's why 70s movies are so much greater than the ones in the 80s because they had less budgets in the 70s than in the 80s. So like people would come up with ideas on how to solve their budgetary problems and their limitations, and that would create great stuff. If you have unlimited budget or unlimited toys, you're not building anything new. You're just building the old stuff over and over again until you can't look at it anymore because it's so fucking boring. And this is like they're gonna destroy themselves in the process because they don't know how to make it.
Yep. Yeah. Amen, brother. Amen. I mean, you started there with that goddamn phrase that the companies put out there that it's democratizing art, and it's more like it's well, there's no real word for this, but I think of it as like it's more like it's entertainmenticizing the art process, which I come from an entertainment art background. You work in entertainment, and so we have to make a distinction there. But there's a difference between making work that is meant to be an entertainment product, right? There's a difference between that and turning the creative act into just a form of raw, shallow entertainment. And I think that is what a lot of these products are doing. It's turning the art process, if you can even imagine any overlap here, it's selling the art process as an entertaining consumer experience instead of something profound that we're doing.
This is already profoundly wrong because, and here's why. Well, as I said in the beginning, I would be working on my stuff even if nobody cared. I don't care for the attention. I'm doing it because I don't know anything else. Like nothing motivates me more than working on my own stuff. They're currently working for attention because it's the first time in their life they're getting attention. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. If they were supermodels, they would be supermodeling instead of fucking doing AI videos. So they have no other skill set whatsoever than to prompt, to get applause, cheap applause for it. None of them are selling books. None of them are selling books. None of them are putting IPs together that they bring to Kickstarter tomorrow. None of that stuff is happening. They're making cheap clickbait. And the clickbait gets reactions, and they're feeding off of the reactions. If they cannot ever monetize the reactions, they will fall out of love with the process of prompting. It's just that simple.
Yep.
And so once that attention goes away, or once that attention is diffused because there's so many people doing it at the same time that none of it just really matters anymore, they will lose their inherent motivation to keep prompting. While I'll be still sitting here with the lights out and banging stones and rocks together and writing stories and drawing art because I don't care. I don't care. I don't need the applause from the outside because I'm motivated on the inside. That is the authentic way. The authentic way is to do it without applause. That's how some guy 23,000 years ago in Lascaux did it on the walls. He didn't
Hell yeah, man.
spit the ball against the wall because he was expecting somebody to come along and give him a like. What the fuck? This is not how things are being made. like things are being made because there's intention behind it and there's authenticity behind it to do them no matter what.
Yep. Yeah. For everybody out there listening, just like, isn't that goddamn right? And isn't that the kind of person and project that you want to support? You know, we've been going for about 2 hours here, so I just want to give people another nudge, and maybe as we start moving towards closing, like I said, if for anybody out there who's seeing the superstructures around broadcast and movies and video games and is feeling like it's all becoming too corporatized and people are just regurgitating the same ideas over and over again, and like stories are sort of in a pinch and they're just everything is being copy pasted and retold over and over again. And you imagine something better where we can tear ourselves away from what these big, not even entertainment companies before, they're all just becoming technology companies, right? Like, it's hard to tell if Netflix is an entertainment company or a technology company at this point. And, you know, it's a hybrid, but it's like they are determining for us what entertainment is, what the substance of our media is, and the way that it's consumed and funded systemically is, I think it's really changing our world. So if you, like me, look at all of this and you feel things are getting a little shaky and you would prefer more humanity in your work and more personal passion, and you want to live in a world where an individual, you know, Marko is an extremely talented individual who has managed to pull off a lot of things through the sweat of his brow. But if you want to live in a world where people like that can really achieve great things and put their work in people's hands, then I would again implore everybody to go check out the Orcin Kickstarter, to go check out the game on Steam. The links are in the description. And I can just, you know, I can push it for you with full confidence, Marko, because I know the product's great. And I know that as soon as they open the Kickstarter page, they're going to get punched in the face with like, whoa, this shit looks awesome. They're going to love it. I know.
It's not about the looks. Like, this is really what I want to bring home. Like, people need to give it a chance and try it out. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we have in the Kickstarter itself is we're going to have the field reports of Edom as a free download for anybody to check out right away. So you can download the trade paperback. We're giving it away for free. So you get to read the full story, the full preamble of the story, the full prelude of the story without having to pay a single cent for it. And then you can decide if you want to support it. And there's a bunch of preview material from all the illustrated versions. I think we have a total of 592 pages that we're giving away for free from the launch set alone. It's
crazy. It's a crazy amount of material in the previews. Yeah.
And so everybody will be able to take a look at the quality of the work that me and my team have been doing over the last couple of months, pretty much, and decide for themselves and go play the prototype and feel it out. Feel if you like the mood, if you want to get part of this universe, and if you want to support something that is purely authentic and driven by an artist's vision and not corporatized and not belonging to anybody else, and not, you know, doesn't need to produce 10x tomorrow to satisfy some investor, but can be, you know, run for the like, can be enjoyed for the long run and evolve and expand and possibly, hopefully, intentionally become what it really deserves, you know, which is a new fantasy franchise in which a lot of fucking great things can happen.
Yes, absolutely. I want that for you and your team. All right. Well, to close out here, there's a few things for me personally, that I would hate to miss the opportunity to talk to you about. So I was like, I want to talk about this project and all that, but now that I have a captive audience, I'll force you to indulge me on a couple things. So when you were working at Massive Black back in the day, I mean, you and that team were a huge personal inspiration to me. You know, for me, I kind of had a big four in my heart. It was you, Android Jones, Koro, and Wesbert. You guys were really, really big for me. And you and Wes in particular, I was like, I really don't know. I wonder, I know I would have done art no matter what, but I mean it for real that I really don't know what I would be doing today with my art if it wasn't for the art that you two made. Specifically, like your pencil drawings, your pencil sketches, that genuinely, for real, changed my life and really opened my heart to what became the most important thing in my life, like the time spent with my pencil and just drawing in peace, really.
I personally, I have very fond memories of the time at Mesa Black. It was a dream job for me, and also working with Wes was an amazing time. Like he was such a good colleague. Like I really enjoyed his presence, especially because we were so diametrically different from one another. We were like the Ken and Ryu couple. Like
Oh
for
yeah.
every of extroversion that I bring along. He's like the meticulous thinker, silent, reserved, and also like it translated in the pencil stuff. But like he has more discipline than anybody that I've ever seen in my life. And the reason why he's so good is because he's so disciplined. And he literally he trains every day. Like he doesn't practice, he doesn't exercise, he trains every day. And he has a meticulous goal in front of him that he's following through, and that he's not letting people in on like what that goal is, but like he's capable of like really forcing himself into his own future
That's
and
so
making
cool.
it happen. And I personally I picked up a lot of discipline from him, just like watching him,
Yeah.
just being aware he's in the same room, because like I know he's gonna fucking do 6 sketches now I have to fucking do 6 sketches as well. And he's gonna fucking do 7, and like I'm gonna try and do 6.5 or 7 as well, because it pisses me off that he's a year younger than me and that he's so much more talented, and like you go into that super loop of yourself, that where you're like constantly reinterpreting your own life choices, and why can't you do it like this, and why can't you do it like that.
Damn.
And that was a good time. It was good for me, for my formational years, to like really learn what it means to stay on target and literally pump out stuff daily.
It had to be. It has to be huge. I remember the first time that I heard that you and Wes like worked in the same room together. I mean, I knew you were in the same studio, but just like hearing a story about it, I don't remember where I would have heard it, but that you and him were in the same room and like just drawing next to each other, basically. I was like, this has to be the most concentrated nexus of drawing power in the world right now. I really felt that way. And I was like, I for real, for a while, when I was young, I was like, that's what it takes. It was like, I need to find my version of that. Like, I need to find someone to be my Marko or my Wes and just sit next to each other and pump it out. Like even just the legend of that, so to speak, of hearing that story, I was like, that there's something resonated with me. I was like, that needs to be my life somehow. I've got to find a way to make that happen for me too.
I just think there was a healthy dose of good-spirited, friendly rivalry between us, which is, I think, the best thing that you can have for your professional career, if you find somebody that you're friends with, but that you're also competing with. Because that's the same, like if you have a gym bro, you go to the gym with, like there's always a like push you forward. And if both of you have the same knack for something, with certain differences, of course, like certain things he does better, certain things I do better, and so forth and so forth. But like if there's like the same path forward for both of you, healthy rivalry is a very good thing to have. It's a very good motivator.
Absolutely.
Get better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I did wind up getting my version of that to some degree with my college roommate when we were in art school together, Ahmed Al-Duri. He was like, we had that dynamic. And I remember when we had that friendly rivalry in school. And then when we had the opportunity to move in together, it's weird to say, but it's like, I had you guys in mind. I was like, this is my chance. And it did have that formative impact on me. And I still think back on that period and I'm like, I would not have gotten an iota of the abilities that I have today if I did not force myself to be exposed to a freak like my roommate all the time, like to just know that you could be that good, that's possible. Yeah, I think it's important. Ahmed Al-Duri. Yeah, I could say, Yeah, I could send you his name on chat as well. But you know, he also has a YouTube as well. He's been around for a long time. I'll ping you his name. You can check out his work. But he was one of the people who told me I should make like an art YouTube many years ago. But yeah, he was hugely influential on me. And yeah, it's weird to say, but I was like, this could be my Marko West moment if I play my cards, right? So you guys became like an archetype, at least in this weirdo's head.
Yeah, I think for many people, you're not the first one to mention that. Like I heard that many times over the years. Like it's one of the things that people remember most frequently. Like the two pencil guys, the two young guys at the MBA office. You know.
Yeah.
What? 24, me 25, you know, like we're kids, like absolute kids, and we were banging out 10, 13 concepts a day. Like it was absolutely nuts. Like all my formation as an artist, as an effective artist, as an effective production artist comes out of that studio.
Pretty incredible. I want to, speaking of pencil and all of that, I want to ask you if you remember this drawing of yours. I would assume so, but I don't know what its actual name is, and I believe it might be a Djurdjević piece, but I'm not 100% sure. But the JPEG at least was called Starfish. Do you know the drawing that I'm talking about?
No, I know.
Is that a Djurdjević piece?
No, it happened sometime after I abandoned Djurdjević for the first time, which was around 2005, and I was still doing sketches. It was not really done for Djurdjević, but there was a lot of post-apocalyptic influence that I still had in my artwork. But it's in Koro's house. Like I gave it to him many years ago as a present. It's
wow.
Thing is
great present.
Why? Well, remember that one?
Out
of all the,
because I would have to say that by volume, that is probably the drawing I have looked at the most in my life when I think about it. There's something, it was right place, right time in my life, coming across it, the things that I wanted to improve at. That drawing, I've come back to it, opened it up, pulled it out of folders, looked it up online again, hundreds of times in my life, and especially in that formative period, to look at it and go, this is what good is. How do you do this? Like just looking at it, I've done copies and things like that, but not super like cursory stuff, just to give me a way to look at it longer. But just looking and being like, how do you fucking do that? How do you do that? And analyzing it and trying to figure it out. And I'm not sure that I ever came to the conclusions, but it's funny to me when I think if time spent looking could help determine like a favorite piece or something like that, right? If we just look at volume, I've got to admit, that's probably the drawing I've looked at the most in my life, for real.
I would have never thought, but I'm happy to hear that, because it was like done on a random Saturday or Sunday. Like I was, you know, just staying at home, staying in and just drawing something. And I wanted to see how far I can push it with a mechanical pencil. It was just like one of those typical, you know, give you some dumb assignment and like work it off and try to figure it in the time frame. But funny, man, like I need to get you a real pencil sketch, like a new one at some point. And break out mechanical pencils again, even though I don't use them anymore. I switched over to layout pencils like a couple of years back. I like them way more.
Oh, really? Like
chubby blue pencil marks are my favorite now.
Like we call them, are they lead holders? Is that the one? It's like it opens up and it grabs a thicker lead. Is that a layout pencil or is it a different thing?
No. The layout. This is a layout pencil. It's just a classic blue pencil.
Got it.
I love those. Like real fat and make beautiful marks. I'm enjoying them far more than the usual usual HB stuff that I used for many years.
Yeah. No, I've followed you guys down that road, and yeah, something like Starfish in particular, like hearing that for you, that drawing came from let's see how far I can go with just a pencil is weird because obviously I knew nothing about that drawing, but hearing that that's where it came from is hysterical to me because that was so much of my formative drawing time. It's just like, I just like using this and I just want to use this as much as possible and what's possible with it. So, yeah, it's really funny for me to hear.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, I had to bring my life full circle on Starfish just because, there's no info about it. You never talk about it. It's just floating around as a JPEG online, and it had such an outsized influence on me. I was like, I have to talk to Marko.
The entire audience is going to go crazy. Everybody's going to search Starfish on Google now. Like,
I'll put it up. I'm just going to edit it in so that they can see it. I don't want them to be mysterious, but it's just like such an important drawing to me. And the last personal thing that I'll bring up is here's my copy of the Marvel art.
Oh, that one.
Oh yeah. This is from 2009. It's ancient now. I got it the second it came out. But this is my copy. I don't know if you can tell on webcam, but it's well worn. It is very well worn. There's parts of it that are underlined. And again, there is just a huge amount of like beautiful finished there's like a huge amount of beautiful finished paintings in here, but there's also a ton of sketches. And obviously that's an intense and beautiful sketch and one that I have studied a lot. And there's also just an amazing amount of marginalia, just like little sketches off in the sides. And I studied this book a lot, but the paintings are great, but it was the sketches. The sketches on the sides are like, I still have tons of them locked in my memory. And those really had a huge influence on me. And I remember just being like, this is raw drawing power. Like who can just sketch like this, even just to put an idea down? But this book, if anyone out, I don't know if it's still in print, but it's a great education. No. I've read every word in this book.
Collector item now. I've seen it. I've seen copies go for $2,000 on eBay. So like, keep that thing. Like it's really valuable at this point.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
A 10K print run, and it all sold out like already years back. I think they sold out after a year. So
wow,
I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I had no idea that was how valuable it is. But I'll tell you what, it's much more valuable than $2,000 to me. That book was always on my desk in college. It takes me back to particular places and times in my life. It's very important to me.
I like the pencil sketches because like I really miss those days sometimes. I was just in New York at New York Comic Con, and I did my first commissions after I don't know how long, like it must have been 15 years. And I really started, after day 2, I started enjoying it again. Like I was like, I kind of still like this. I'm happy that I experienced a life where I did so much original work, then went fully digital, and now after 15 years of doing almost digital exclusively, I can still sit down and enjoy, a nice convention sketch and just do something beautifully on the spot for people that appreciate it, and I can gift it away. This is like the beauty of original art, which like you don't have when you do stuff digitally. That's like as much freedom as it gives you in terms of creation, it doesn't give you the satisfaction of being able to gift something to somebody. And I've particularly throughout my life, I've always gifted my originals away, unless they were really valuable and were locked with my art dealer and he wanted to sell them. But like in general, sketches and stuff like this, I like awarding friends or colleagues or people who are just appreciative of the art with an original. And just being fully digital just doesn't give you the time to do that on the side, and I'm not studying or anything. And so just doing those convention sketches like really brought me back into a good mood. And hearing you liking the old stuff is also very nice.
No, yeah, a traditional drawing, an analog drawing, it allows for that intense connection. I know for me personally, when I just feel like the online stuff is just like, it's making us forget what drawing and art really are at their core. So, and I don't know that many, like I don't have that many artists around me in my day-to-day life, like my just in my physical world space, right? I know a lot of artists online. I have friends who come in and out of New York, and I see them whenever they come, and I keep in touch with them. But they're rarely in the room with me, right? So whenever like my friends come over, and certainly when my artist friends come over, I'm always like, let me put a drawing in your hand. I don't even like just showing it. I'm just like, just grab it, just hold it, feel this thing in your hand, look at the way that it shines. Like that really matters to me. The last time one of my art friends was in New York, a comic book artist named Stephen Green, we only had a very brief period to hang out, but still at the end of it, I was like, you're not leaving. You have to walk all the way back with me to my car, and I'm going to put a drawing in your hand that I'm literally taking out of my trunk. Or I was like, I was dealing drugs out of my trunk. I was like, here's my last drawing. Just hold it. It'll make me happy. All right, now get the fuck out of here. It does matter to me. There's something magical about it that, I don't know. I don't think it will ever really go away. It's a powerful thing for me. And now I got to find a way. To somehow, through some luck, I've got to meet Koro and somehow wind up at his house, and just so I can see starfish on his wall wherever he's got it.
Yeah. You should hit him up, like write him a message, or
we've chatted a little bit. We've chatted a little bit here and there, but someday maybe I'll get the chance. All right, Marko. Well, I think this is a good place to end it here. I mean, this has been a wonderful.
Pleasure. It was like one of the best podcasts in a while. I really like talking to you. You're a smart guy, very intelligent. I really appreciate the talk.
Thank you, Marko. I mean, it's been an absolute honor speaking with you and talking to you about your project. Do you have any final words that you want to tell the audience? Any advice you want to end on, or anything?
Nothing in particular. I just want to wish you all the best with your fatherhood in raising that kid. Like it's gonna be like you have some great years ahead of you, and you'll cherish them a few years down the line.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any final advice for me as an art dad? How do I keep the art thing going in the middle of all this?
That's the easiest way to keep it going. Like you can do art with a kid on your lap. You just have to get used to it. Like it's less annoying than having a cat around you that pisses in your jacket. I don't know. Like I would like to, if I had advice, cherish the coming years that are like between 6 and 10, because they're the cutest in that range, and like those memories will be the most meaningful. And like try to encapsulate them somehow, and then after that they become smart asses and like do all kinds of crazy shit. But like the period 6 to 10 is amazing, and you'll sleep better after he's 3. So that should also solve it for you.
Okay.
Just a few years of lack of sleep coming up.
I could do that for him. I could definitely do that for him. Yeah, and I look forward to 6 to 10. Truly, I really do.
And learn how to turbo nap. Like that's also super important.
My God. I've always been bad at taking naps. So yeah, I'll have to put some work in there.
10 seconds here and there, and then you'll recover enough for the day.
All right, I will try. I will do what I can. All right, Marko. Thank you again. This has been wonderful. And to the audience out there, please, again, go check out the Orcin Kickstarter. The link is in the description. And also check out the game demo that is on Steam. And that should all be up and rolling now. If you're watching this, we're posting this on the same day that everything is going live. So take care, everybody. And Marko, I hope to see you again soon. Hopefully the next time that you've got something that you're putting out there in the world, I'd love to have you on and have you talk about it again.
Oh, I mean, we should maybe reconnect when all of this crazy shit is over. Like, as soon as this campaign finally ends and I can breathe like a normal person, maybe also make sure that we meet up somehow. We'd really love to meet.
Yeah, I would love to do that next time you swing by New York. Yeah, I'd love to meet you.
I'll be out this year at New York Comic Con again, just to represent the IP now and put it for people.
All right, well, let's keep in touch about that. Yeah, let's see if we can make it happen. All right.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye, everybody.